Welcome to the DNA Talks podcast, where we take on the mission of unlocking the code of your genetics. This season is all about you, upgrading your health, not just on the surface, but down to the root cause. Join us as your clinicians at the DNA company investigate your DNA and beyond. The intention of this podcast is to enhance your lifestyle by changing what is in your control. This does not substitute the medical advice given by your personal doctor, therapist, and other healthcare professionals.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the DNA Talks podcast. My name is Dr. Lara Varden. I'm a functional genomics and holistic health practitioner, and I serve as an in-house clinician here at the DNA company. I'm also co-founder and CEO of Sacred Genomics. And today, I have the delightful pleasure of welcoming back Roudy Nassif, founder and CEO of VivaRays, a company dedicated to providing holistic, eco-friendly solutions, including their blue light blocking glasses, to transforming sleep and energy, raising awareness about light and health, with emphasizing the harmful effects of artificial light on an emotional, mental, and physical level. My first interview with Roudy, season 2, episode 7, which aired November 28th, 2023, we learned about his origin story. We also talked about light and the circadian rhythm, as well as about VivaRays themselves and how they aid in light exposure and how to help you function better. I also left off with a teaser saying that I would bring him back to talk about women's hormones and all the different things that we are so excited to talk about, and that we are opening up to have that conversation and biohacking tools and tips and ways that we can help us as women get through life and this a hormonal roller coaster that we have. So I would like to welcome back Roudy. Thank you so much for being here. And this is also in the realm of the fact that March is Women's History Month. And with International Women's Day being March 8th, this is a perfect topic to dive into today. So again, welcome.
Yeah, I'm honored to be here and to be speaking about this topic.
And if for those of you watching, or maybe you're just listening, I'm wearing my VivaRays, which I absolutely love and have found that they personally have helped improve my sleep. My sleep score actually has jumped 5 points overall. I'm absolutely fantastic. Not that I doubted it. I have found it very helpful. And even my readiness score has jumped 10 points over the month that I've been wearing them. So definitely fantastic benefits. So as a woman going through menopause and, wondering, okay, so I'm getting these benefits, but I really would love to hear the science behind and the information that you have when it comes to how light affects hormones, how it affects fertility, how it affects us, in menopause. So why don't I hand over the mic to you and you can speak into that, please.
Yeah, to add to this, not only your sleep scores increased, but you're looking awesome as well. I hope people can see how awesome you're looking with the glasses.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's dive all things light and hormones. So the master hormone and fertility hormone, pregnenolone, is actually made in the inner mitochondrial membrane in response to morning light. So think about your beautiful morning, you wake up, you go outside, you face east, sunlight enter your eyes. Not only this is exalting from a beauty perspective and connecting with nature, but it's also programming your neurotransmitters that will allow you to have more and better relation to your fertility. And pregnenolone is the precursor or the raw material from which the stress hormone cortisol is produced, but also the fertility hormones, estrogen, testosterone, and progesterone are made. And when we first wake up and light enter our eyes, pregnenolone gets converted into cortisol. And for most of you listening, perhaps cortisol have this bad association. Oh my God, this is the bad stress hormone. But in reality, in nature, there's nothing bad. It's about context, it's about timing, and have the right thing at the right time. And here you go, you experience wonders. But the same thing, have it at the wrong time, and you find yourself swimming upstream. So in relationship to cortisol, you need that healthy spike of cortisol first thing in the morning. Otherwise, you're gonna really struggle to kickstart your day. It's cortisol that allow you to feel alert, focused, energized, and motivated. And what happened is, in a healthy woman, in under balanced condition, the body will convert the rest of the pregnenolone to youth and fertility hormones. And when we speak about estrogen and progesterone, they're not only important to keep your energy levels up throughout the day, but they're also absolutely important for youthful looking skin, hair, nails, and for preparing the womb to for and keeping it in an optimal state to be able to welcome a baby. Now, the interesting thing is that when mitochondria, or when the body senses that there's a threat in the environment, and think about our ancestors 500 years ago, we're out foraging, having a good time, and then here we go, we see a predator, or we see a tiger, and in this moment, all of our physiology instantly changes, and the body is no longer concerned about optimizing fertility because making a baby is no longer a priority. The body is no longer concerned about driving blood to keep optimal, youthful looking skin and hair. The number one priority in this moment is fight or flight, because otherwise you will die. And basically what happened is that all of the pregnenolone is diverted from fertility pathways to more cortisol, so that you can survive for your life.
I'm really glad that you are emphasizing the fact that there is a difference, that you have cortisol. This is not bad. That in acute situations, that fight or flight that saved my life, okay, it is necessary. You also want that to spike. Normal cortisol levels do spike in the morning and then slowly attenuate or lessen throughout the day to then get you ready for bed. But that spike in the morning, which generally is at its highest about 2 hours after you wake up, you need that to give you the energy to get out of bed. You need that to get your day going. So this is a good thing. It's just that chronic stress keeping us in that state that can then throw off our hormones, our levels, to where we can actually not spike at all in the morning and we're dragging. And then it may come up in the afternoon or evening when you don't really want it to, and then you find it hard to go to bed, which leads right into using that light, having the pregnenolone, and how, wearing, blue light blockers to change the input into our brain of all of these stress signals.
Yeah, absolutely. That's an amazing point, and I'm glad that you weaved it in the conversation, because I often see, and back to my own story, when I first did my cortisol test, it was showing around 10 microgram per deciliter at night, and it's supposed to be below 1 at night, because cortisol is not a hormone of night. It's the cortisol that is supposed to be in the body during the day to promote wakefulness and activity. The same hormone produced at night will create massive chaos, because it will suppress other important hormones like melatonin, growth hormone, and it will completely inhibit the body from being able to repair and regenerate. We can't talk about detoxification. I think we touched a little bit on that point last time. We can't talk about detoxification if we have a messed up cortisol melatonin cycle. If we have high cortisol at night, low melatonin, the body will not detoxify, the brain will not detoxify, the heart will not detoxify. And day after day, we will wake up feeling exhausted. And the problem is that if we are secreting cortisol at the wrong time of the day, day after day, we start depleting our cortisol reserve. And what happened is you wake up with very little cortisol in your system. And here you go. You form that story. I'm not a morning person. I struggle in my mornings. I need coffee. I hate the mornings. No, no, no. I was the night owl, and I was like the guy who would wake up at 11 a.m. and feeling exhausted. And all of this literally changed instantly when I visited the farm and when I start living in alignment with nature's light and our cycles. Now, to come back to fertility, the interesting thing is any form of psychological stress can cause you to perceive or can cause your body to produce hormones as though there's a tiger in front of you. So the silent tiger in today's world is number one, our way of thinking. Because if we are thinking in an unbalanced way all the time, if we tend to worry a lot, if we tend to stress about every single detail, now guess what? We are creating a illusionary tiger that is constantly sitting next to us and that is spiking our cortisol all the time.
Yeah, I say to my clients, where your thoughts go, energy flows, because everything is frequencies. Everything, our thoughts, this has been scientifically measured. So the types of frequencies that your thoughts have affect the cells in your body. And of course, if you are constantly concerned and worried and doing all that, you're telling your cells, be on alert, be in that fight or flight state. Where when we can have more calming thoughts, show more gratitude, be aware and calm in our surroundings, get that vagal tone exercised, to be in that parasympathetic state, we can allow that calmness, have that focus and energy to tell ourselves that rest and digest, now's the time we can be in the healing state.
Absolutely. I think it was Albert Einstein who said, everything is energy, and that's all there is to it. And if you want to create any reality in your life, you must match the level of your thinking to the level of that reality. And oftentimes, what happens is when we are dealing with any form of chronic diseases, we have subconsciously become attached to an image that we are sick and that we have this disease, that I am a sick person. And the level of frequency that this thought is coming from is continuously matching us with the reality and the consequences of sickness. So, absolutely, the first and number one most important thing anyone need to be aware of is the moment we want to shift gear into a new reality, we need to also shift gear in the way we're thinking. And thinking new things often takes energy, and it takes resourcefulness within ourselves to have the proper neurotransmitters that will allow us to make that shift. For instance, when I was still stuck in my story that I'm a night owl, that I'm an ADHD person, no matter how hard I tried, I did not have enough resourcefulness in myself to think new thoughts because I was living in a contaminated environment where artificially lit screens were creating my reality. And remember, in the first podcast, we said light creates reality because it's manufacturing all of the hormones and neurotransmitters like serotonin, dopamine, beta endorphins that control the way you think, the way you feel, and the way you act. And it wasn't until I pulled myself out of this contaminated environment into a healthy light environment, my body instantly knew what to do, and I was able to thrive. I was able to produce new neurotransmitters that allowed me to have the energy to think new thoughts and therefore create a new reality. So that's an amazing point. I love that you're touching on it. And to tie it back to what we were saying is uh, psychological stress is an issue, and it will increase cortisol. Now, another invisible threat in our environment today is artificial lighting, because it turns out there's a German scientist. His name is Fritz Hollweg. He's from Germany, and he published super interesting studies back in the 1970s showing how sitting under artificial blue light increases the stress hormone cortisol and ACTH in an abnormal way. And here we go. In today's world, we're all sitting and bathing in an environment that is blue lit day and night. And what happened is the woman sitting in that environment, they're subconsciously receiving a signal into their mitochondria to convert pregnenolone into more and more cortisol. And they're missing on estrogen, progesterone, and the fertility hormone. And this really taxes their sexual glands and lead to brain fog and sluggishness. And it ties also with menopause, because uh, based on my conversation with many wonderful women, including my mom, 4 or 5 years ago, when I was actually able to help her to overcome her intense insomnia and menopausal issues, what I noticed is that oftentimes women are repeating to themselves a story that it's totally normal to experience those hot flashes, weight gain, inability to sleep well at the moment when we come to an age where we experience menopause. But the reality is, menopausal period of time is an absolutely sacred and powerful period for every woman, because during that time, for the first time, women are able to retain their blood that has tremendous amount of vitamins and minerals. And for the first time, the retention of this blood actually, when used properly, allow the woman to tap into her genius. It's during that time when a woman could flourish even more and give a lot more to the world. And one of my mentors, he actually died. His name is Walter Russell. I've never known him in person, but he says true genius knows that as we grow older, our mind grow more brilliantly, and every genius know this. Whereas in today's world, most people have this belief that as we grow older, we don't have enough energy. True genius has tremendous energy until the last breath that they take. And he says that true genius actually for most men and women starts after the age of 40. And I like to constantly remind myself of this beautiful new way of thinking, because I could see that if one person was able to do it, it means that we can all do it, because we why not? Like, no one is born a genius. Genius is self-bestowed, and mediocrity is self-inflicted. And it comes back to what we believe. So again, during menopause, the pre-menopause, I'm sorry, the ovaries slowly stop producing estrogen and progesterone. But in a healthy woman, the adrenal glands are supposed to compensate by secreting small quantities of estrogen and progesterone to ensure that the transition goes smoothly and as easily as possible. However, if you are a woman that who is sitting in a toxic light environment all the time, around LED bulbs, scrolling on your phone, and being bombarded by a ton amount of stress in your life, you're constantly forcing that conversion of pregnenolone into more cortisol. And with no amount of estrogen and progesterone being produced, absolutely. You will no doubt experience hot flashes, weight gain, fatigue, and all the common uh, unpleasant effects that women tend to experience during menopause.
First of all, I want to say thank you. It is so beautiful to hear the perspectives of what you were just saying about the brilliance and genius. And I would interject in the wisdom as we get older, because longer you are here on earth, the more experiences you have. And appreciating and getting back to honoring our elders. And it is sad that a lot of our people, our generation today, does not honor their elders for the wisdom that they have. That when we think of, oh, getting old, we think of, oh, feeble, losing their mind, we know better than they do. And this needs to change. And I think that this is the time to start shifting back to how it originally was, where the honor is in the elders, that wisdom, that knowledge, and leaning in on that, our young people learning from them. And I will say that we, because I'm in my 50s, that we also learn from those younger than us. So it is this synergistic and compatible learning opportunity, but that we do not dismiss one another. So I really appreciate you bringing that up. Also, in the fact of, as you are talking about these things, as you are saying about, that we want to make sure that our hormones, are pregnenolone and the cortisol levels are in sync, and all of these toxins, including, junk light coming to us, is throwing that off, and that's throwing our hormones off, and it almost gets to be like a chicken or the egg type of thing. And where do we stop that cycle? Where can we reach in and go, okay, so we know we need to detox, we know we need to, get good sleep, but we can't do that before, we get rid of some of these toxins. But it's hard to get rid of the toxins if you're not sleeping because you're not detoxing, and it gets to be overwhelming. And I'm sure that a lot of our audience and listeners are feeling that overwhelm. And it's like, where do I start? What do I do? How can I break this cycle? So I do want to circle back, on the fertility aspect and pregnancy and the hormones and light, but I do want to get your insight. Where do you begin? Where can you help to break that cycle? And where do VivaRays come into that?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very common question. And most people are astonished by the simplicity of my answer because it's really simple.
We like
And
simple.
and simply put, it all starts with the light that enters your eyes first thing in the morning. So I'd like you to take a moment and ask yourself, what do I do first thing in the morning when I open my eyes? Am I scrolling on social media? Am I going to my laptop to check my emails? Am I turning on bright artificial lights in the kitchen and drinking my coffee indoors? And if the answer to all of these questions is yes, then you have a massive place of improvement that will instantly be transformational on every aspect of your health. Because we tend to think about health as dissected in a way where, like, oh yeah, I want to improve this or I want to improve that. But the truth is that it's everything flows into everything else, and light is non-linear, which means very small changes and very little improvement could have cascading, amplifying effects on every aspect of your health. So, what I'd like you to start reconsidering is what you do first thing in the morning. And if you are someone who constantly needs an alarm clock to wake up, that tells us that your internal clock in the body, that central clock that tracks the time and tells the body what time of the day it is, it's confused because you technically have an internal alarm clock that will wake you up at the right time when it's working properly and when it's in sync with the light and dark cycles. But what often happens is that when you expose yourself to a lot of artificial light at night, your circadian clock shifts forward. And what this means is that at 6 a.m., when the sun is rising, your body is still registering 3 a.m. and is thinking it's nighttime, and melatonin is still very high in your system. And therefore, you will need an alarm clock to wake you up. And in this moment, when your brain hears an alarm clock, it pulls you out from your deep sleep or from your REM sleep, and it's extremely disruptive to your brain and to your biology. So, starting to think about how can we get into a beautiful rhythm that will allow you to get rid of that alarm clock first thing in the morning. And the truth is that it's very easy. You need to be concerned about two main things, and you need to maintain consistency and regularity with those two things. Now, what are those two things? Number one, morning sunlight. First thing in the morning when you wake up. That's the light that needs to enter your eyes because it resets every hormone in your body and it resets your circadian clock. And this moment when light enters, it sets not only it increases cortisol in a healthy way, but it also sets an internal alarm of when the sleep hormone melatonin will be released about 12 to 14 hours from that moment. Now, considering
So I've got a question that I'm sure that many of the audience people listening are going to have is, okay, so I get up and I expose myself to the sun. I look at the sun. For how long?
Yeah, so if the sun is bright and there's no clouds, you need about at least 10 minutes to get the proper amount of light that will reset your circadian clock. And that's minimum there, right? So start with this. Like for me, after practicing this for years, I don't even think about time anymore because I came to a point where my body knows and I have stacked several different habits in the morning, so much so that I could do them outside and I could maximize my light exposure. But even if you start with 1 minute, right, you will feel a powerful response in your body. Ideally, you want at least 10 minutes first thing in the morning to reset your clock and tell your brain that it's actually daytime.
And I do want to mention to the audience members that we, or, to the people listening, that we are not saying stare at the sun, as you're doing this, but just exposing your face, having it on your face. But no, you don't have to look directly at the sun to get these benefits.
Absolutely. You're turning towards the sun and you're looking in the direction, but you don't need to be staring straight into the sun. Absolutely. And
So your second thing.
the second thing, considering that you've set this internal clock that will release melatonin at the right time of the day, you don't want to ruin that good thing that you've set in your body. Now, you may ask, like, how do I ruin it? You often ruin it, without even noticing by exposing yourself to artificial light after the sunset, because again, light is information, and when you expose yourself to artificial light after the sunset, what are you telling your brain? You're telling your brain, hey, brain, it's daytime. Suppress melatonin, increase cortisol, and let's go. And this is exactly what you don't want to do at night. And if you stay true to that and you wear, let's say, a high quality circadian eyewear like the VivaRays glasses, the evening version of it, then you're going to filter out the information that will otherwise confuse your brain about the time of the day. And as a consequence, as a result, your body will still be able to produce melatonin at the right time, and it will prepare your internal terrain with all the resources that will allow you to access deep, restful, regenerative night sleep.
So I have two questions based on your second, thing. And when you're talking about not to be exposed to, fake light, this junk light after sunset, well, there's a practicality issue in that. People who work certain jobs, for example, my son works at the hospital. He does 12-hour shifts, 7 in the morning to 7 at night. And obviously, the hospital is not the place for good lighting. It is just flooded with, artificial light. So he really doesn't have that opportunity to go, yeah, I'm not going to be exposed to this. And working into my second question, that dovetails off of that, is that when you're talking about if you really don't have a choice for the exposure of artificial light after the sun goes down, yes, VivaRays are fantastic to protect the eyes from that. But is it only the eyes that we need to protect? What about skin? Does that make a difference? I've read some papers kind of working off of both, saying that it does, some that it doesn't. What are your thoughts and findings on that?
Yeah, it's a very controversial topic about the skin. From what I read, uh, I have came to the conclusion that the primarily pathway that reset our circadian clock is via the eyes. For some animals, for instance, like I heard that, for example, a snake has a hole in the top of the head, and that's the primarily way via which light enters to reset the clock of a snake. For us humans, it's the two holes and that are in our eyes. And now melanopsin, the opsin that is sensitive to light, is also present in our skin. So here's where it becomes controversial, because we also know that not only we have the central clock in the brain, which is the primarily clock that resets all of the millions of the clock, but we also have peripheral clocks in our organs and in our skin. So though science did not find a direct pathway to come to the conclusion that light via the skin will reset our circadian clock, intuitively, I do think that it will have a negative impact on the peripheral clocks, but the amount, the duration of the exposure and the amount of the light that needs to arrive at the skin needs to be a lot more intense and much higher than what we usually need to create the same negative impact if the light was to come through the eyes.
Wearing, obviously, like I had said, wearing your VivaRays, my VivaRays, it is definitely, I have noticed a difference. And I will put this out there that I actually gave a pair to my son working in the hospital. And just since the time that he has been using them, he has found and noticed a tremendous difference in eye strain. It has gone down, headaches gone down, his fatigue level, he's not as fatigued as much when he gets home. He's usually exhausted, and he's finding he's got more energy. So I know that your glasses work. Your blue light blockers are wonderful. So I'm asking is, does it then even matter, or would it be even more advantageous to actually block like around the sides and top, almost having those goggle types? Of course, I'm sure, I don't know how they would be like aesthetically, but what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in relation to the skin, for example, I never worry about covering my skin. Oftentimes, I'm not in intense artificial lighting after the sunset. I would definitely not recommend tanning under intense blue light, shirtless at night. I mean, there's no reason for anybody to do this, but also there's no reason to get very obsessed and like cover every part of the skin just because there's like one or two light bulb in the room. I don't think the intensity and the duration when it comes to the skin is even close to the negative effect that we get when light enter our eyes. Now, the second thing is the peripheral light, and that's a great question. Now, due to the nature of light, when light shines on an object at a 90-degree angle, that's when light is the most intense. And because it shines on a much smaller surface, and then the intensity increases. Now, the moment the light stop moving and the angle, if I'm shining the light in front of me like this, it's hitting at a 90-degree angle from my eye. But if I move that same source of light and I start moving it to the side, so it's hitting the periphery of my eye, the angle at which it's hitting is close to zero. And therefore, the light would spread over a very, very big area. and then the intensity of light that is arriving at the surface is close to zero. So that's why uh, worrying about the peripheral light is not so much a thing. Also, we have the cones and the rods in the eye, and technically, the rods are what allow us to see and navigate at night, whereas the cones are what allow us to process visible light and to be able to see. Now, what we know is that the rods, the rods are concentrated in the periphery of the eye, whereas the cones are concentrated in the center of the retina. Since the rods do not play any role in allowing us to process visible light, also stimulating the rods from peripheries is not as concerning as stimulating the cones through the light that is shining straight into the eyes.
Working off of the practicality, like I had mentioned, my son, and there are many health workers, there are many people doing jobs where they have to work night shifts, swing shifts. What would you recommend for them? Because obviously that's their livelihood. It's not like they can just quit their jobs and nobody works at night. Hospitals need to have staff, 24/7. So, what would you recommend, seeing that uh, they are living and being active outside of the normal circadian rhythm of the sun, of light dark,
Yeah,
really working at opposite levels against that?
yeah, that's a great question. To be honest, it's a lot easier to navigate the situation if you are consistently staying in a nighttime versus swinging between day and night, because when you consistently stay in a nighttime rhythm, then what you can do is you want to make your night day and your day night. And what this means is that you want to maximize the level of light that is arriving at the eye at night when you're actually active, and you need to eliminate or try to decrease as much as possible the amount of light that is arriving at the level of the eye during the day when it's your actual nighttime and when you're supposed to be sleeping. Now, from a practical perspective, what I recommend for people is to wear the evening lenses when, first of all, before wearing the evening lenses, watching the sunset as their sunrise. Okay, so we're gonna think of the sun is setting, that's the sunrise for a nighttime shifter. Okay, this and technically they go after that to work, and for the first few hours of work, they need to have as much light entering their eyes. Now, the unfortunate reality is that the lights in hospitals and in our modern world are inflammatory. And that's because they use this narrow spike of blue light at 455 nanometer that is not proportionate and balanced with the other regenerative frequencies like the yellow, orange, and red lights. So for a nighttime shifter, they want to maximize the level of light entering their eyes, but at the same time, they want to minimize that junk inflammatory light. So how can you deal with that? What I recommend is wearing the daytime lenses in their shift for the first 4 or 5 hours, and then the last 3 hours of their shift, that's when they will be moving towards the evening in their reality. And that's when I would recommend wearing the VivaRays evening glasses in the last 2 to 3 hours of their shift. And very important, by the end of their shift, they're probably coming back home. That's when they really need to eliminate light from entering their eyes or minimize the amount of light that is entering their eyes, because that's technically their nighttime. And during that time, the sun may be rising. So they need to avoid watching that sunrise. I would recommend wearing the VivaRays nighttime glasses if the sun was to be rising, and try to avoid getting that light into your eyes as much as possible until the moment you arrive home. That's daytime for you, Lara. That's daytime for me. I'm probably like waking up, excited to go see the sunrise. For this person, it's their nighttime. So they need to keep the nighttime lenses on until they get into their bedroom, block out everything, and go to bed. And if they can't block out their bedroom, then using a blackout sleeping mask, like the one we offer, also is an absolute necessity. And in this way, they have created a new rhythm, and they will be able to minimize the negative effect that they will otherwise experience if they were not doing those little changes.
And I want to emphasize for those listeners that this is very important because it's both women and men who have to work in these types of environments. And it does directly affect your hormone regulation, your fertility. So, easing back into that conversation, which we've covered some on, I would love to touch upon pregnancy and light and work into milk production and breastfeeding in light.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, pregnancy is related to fertility, and a woman who has disruptive fertility hormones in her estrogen, progesterone, and so on will not be able to create the optimized environment in her womb to be able to welcome a baby. So all the things that we spoke about how to interact with sunlight, making sure that we're creating a safe space for the body to thrive, and creating that conversion of pregnenolone into estrogen and progesterone is absolutely necessary for the woman's body to be able to optimize the womb and make it an optimal space to be able to welcome a baby, because it takes a lot of energy to do that, and the woman's mitochondria must be in an optimized state. And uh, another very important thing is that we know that mitochondria, which is this little engine that produce energy in our body, undergo what we call mitophagy, which is a process under which those mitochondria get rid of the old mitochondria that are no longer serving and replace them with new mitochondria that are able to produce energy properly. And this can only happen when the person have a consistent and regular light and dark exposure, because UV light on one side play a massive role in optimizing mitophagy, and on the other side, darkness after the sunset is the main trigger via which mitophagy is activated every night while we are sleeping. So there's so much going on when we are sleeping. We think we're going to sleep, but the body is doing all these uh, backstage stuff that is preparing us to live our life to the optimal. And when it comes to breastfeeding, the primarily hormones that are involved in breastfeeding are prolactin and oxytocin. Now, when we talk about breastfeeding, it's not only important for babies. I mean, we all know it's important because it provides optimal nutrition, it promotes the development of their brain, and it even protects the babies from disease. But it's also important. I've seen like studies showing how important it is for moms themselves, because it help them to lose weight post conception, and it has been shown to reduce the risk of cancer, and it creates this powerful emotional connection and bond between the mother and the baby. Now, the cool thing is that if you think about it, I mean, we're all one, and this is such another powerful example about like oneness. But it's not enough to create a good light environment for the baby. We also need to make sure that the mom has an equally healthy light environment, getting enough sunlight during the day and blocking artificial light after the sunset. And you may ask, like, why is that? My baby is in an optimal light environment. They're not getting artificial light at night. Why does the mom need to be concerned about this? Well, it's because uh, the breast milk from the mom has many hormones, including cortisol and melatonin. And if the cortisol melatonin cycle for the mom is messed up, is going to pass it on to her baby when she does breastfeeding. So if the mom's light environment is healthy, her milk will have enough cortisol during the day, which will stimulate wakefulness and activity during morning hours. And it will have enough melatonin at night, which will support the child's sleep. Now, take that same mom and expose her to artificial light at night. Even if the baby was not exposed directly to that artificial light, they're going to get her milk, which will be in a way corrupted, and it will negatively affect the baby. And another very important thing is that prolactin. I think it has been shown that the level of prolactin naturally increase after the sunset when it starts to get dark outside. And we all know that darkness triggers the production of melatonin, the sleep hormone. However, there's a relationship between prolactin and melatonin. So the rise of prolactin production at night is also due to the one, the presence of melatonin in the body, and two, very important thing, the absence of dopamine, which is a neurotransmitter that inhibits prolactin secretion. And we know that light during the day, primarily sunlight, increases dopamine. But also, what we also know is that when you're scrolling on social media at night, it creates a fake dopamine hit because primarily of the excitement, but also of the amount of blue light that is arriving at the eye. And that start negatively impacting the production of prolactin at night that the healthy, otherwise a healthy woman would be producing.
Yeah, and I will say, out of remembering when I had little ones right after I had kids, but also, living with my son and daughter-in-law, helping with my granddaughter, who's, turning 11 months, next week, that even with all of that, you're not going to be sleeping very much anyway. You're already fighting an uphill battle trying to get a full night's sleep, which they probably have had one or two over the last 10 months. So it's like, don't make it more difficult for yourself by having a phone in front of your face, when you're trying to get to bed. So yeah, I mean, it's all the more that I tell my female clients, especially in those fertility years, or if they have young ones, it's like, give yourself a head start. Make sure that you are doing every little thing you can, because you're already going to be sleep deprived. You are already going to be, tired waking up because you've been up, several times in the night with the baby. So,
Great point. And oftentimes, during times of chaos, the tendency becomes thinking in such a way that since chaos is there, you know what, it doesn't matter. Uh, it's not going to make that much of a difference. But the truth is because there's chaos and because there's lack of sleep, even the tiny amount of sleep that you could get within that chaos will make a massive difference. So absolutely, I agree. I agree a lot about this point.
so let's compound the situation in having, okay, you are female, you are looking at getting pregnant, you've got a baby, you are breastfeeding, you're not getting a lot of sleep, but you're trying to, enhance your family. So, would there be any other situations or things that you would recommend when it comes to light exposure and working, along that lines to help enhance, these two very sometimes challenging, not sometimes, they are challenging situations, and putting them on top of each other?
That's a great question. So, for example, we know that sunlight, when sunlight enters the eyes, it leads to the production of a master gene called propiomelaanocortin, which is composed of something like 240 amino acids. And propiomelaanocortin, it becomes so many different hormones. It's the precursor for beta endorphin, for example, which is a natural painkiller and a natural opioid that allow you to feel good. Now, why am I bringing this up? Because I know also that after pregnancy, so many women tend to take different painkillers, and they would be struggling with like back pain, with different itches and so on. So sunlight exposure is absolutely necessary, not only via the eyes but also on the skin. So getting that UV light hitting the skin and hitting the eye would be absolutely necessary to produce those hormones. Another thing is weight gain and cravings. We also know that propiomelaanocortin becomes alpha MCH, beta MCH, and gamma MCH. Now, alpha MCH is a very important hormone that allows us to tan. It increases our libido. It decreases inflammation in the body. But also, very interestingly, it has been shown to suppress our desire to eat. And when alpha MCH is disrupted in the body, it actually leads to more craving and an increased desire to use food as a way to soothe emotion. And it has been shown to lead to a lot of weight gain. So the simple fact of going outside during the day and exposing your eyes and skin to sunlight will have tremendous amount of benefits beyond what we can talk about in this podcast. I mean, there's thousands of different pathways that we could sit down and explore, but the reality is the action step is simple. Wake up, get that morning sunlight in your eyes first thing in the morning. Throughout the day, no matter where you are and what you're doing, try to find those times when you can take a 5 minute sun break, a 10-minute sun break, and walk out in nature, breathe, find ways to soothe yourself and to allow yourself to connect with nature around you, with the environment. And what happened is that you'll be outside, you'll be breathing fresh air, you'll be enjoying the beauty that is around you, which are all amazing things to help your biochemistry to settle and be more in a homeostasis. But also, you'll be at the same time capturing all that natural light, which will have a tremendous amount of benefits on your biology. The third thing is when you are indoors, try to mitigate the effect of the harmful light as much as possible. Like I am indoors right now. I'm wearing my VivaRays daytime glasses and I'm eliminating a lot of the inflammatory light that otherwise will may cause eye strain, headaches, um, low energy levels, and so on. And also, if you have the ability, let's say you're driving your car or you're sitting in your office and there's a window in front of you, the simple fact of like opening the window will allow a lot of this natural light to enter your eyes and will help you to get the benefits without you needing to think about it. So those are like very small and simple ways that you could do to harness the power of light without needing to, let's say, actively put time towards that. You're sitting on your office or you're driving your car, you're already there, you need to do it anyway, but you're making small changes like opening the window and you're allowing that natural light to get into your eyes and you're experiencing a lot of benefits as a consequence. And lastly, very very important, mitigating the effects of artificial light at night. And what this means, most of the listeners will not have this, instant decision within themselves. Oh my God, I'm not gonna engage with my phone anymore, or I'm gonna turn my house into a cave. I'm not gonna turn artificial lights on, and that's understandable. We live in a modern world where we're surrounded by all these devices and all these forms of artificial light. So a tool like the VivaRays glasses and using the tool correctly and on a consistent basis is going to make a massive difference because it's going to eliminate the junk light and is gonna make sure that this light is not disrupting your rhythm. And therefore, now you're combining the power of light and darkness. And the moment you have those two powers interchanging in balance, the consequence is a balance interchange in all of your hormones and your rhythm. And that then you're going to be able to sleep better, have more energy and focus, be more productive, feel clearer in your thinking, and have better digestion. There's a tremendous amount of benefits that you may experience depending on who you are and what you're struggling with.
And I'll tell you, for those exhausted mamas out there, doing the incredible job of raising those little ones, wherever you can, just get outside, get into the light, take the baby out too. They need a sun exposure too. Don't constantly cover them in shade. Let their little bodies be exposed. I mean, obviously, you're not going to have them, looking directly at the sun either, because they've got more sensitive eyes, but, they need the fresh air as well. So have a bonding experience with both of you going out. Take them for a walk in their stroller. Have that. I think that would make a tremendous difference. And when you're saying, overwhelmed and all of these different things, all of these changes, the most important thing, pick one thing and do it. Do it every day. Build the habit, then you can start adding on other things. And this works into BJ Fogg's tiny habits. It's That's what you do. Start creating, just start, get the momentum. And even if that first thing is get yourself a pair of VivaRays, which is an excellent choice. Do that. And I love the fact that you have children's glasses, so you can even protect them. In the home, at school, when you're out and about, their little eyes and bodies and hormones and everything else are also needed to be protected.
Yeah, I wanted to say
No,
that
go ahead.
the kids are a lot more vulnerable than adults when it comes to how light impact their biology and their brain development, their ability to sleep well is connected to how well they are maximizing their light exposure during the day and how well they are getting darkness at night. I remember as a kid, I suffered greatly from ADHD, depression, chronic fatigue. And the truth is that if I had someone to tell my parents or my teachers that all I needed is more sunlight during the day and darkness at night, I would have been able to avoid crazy amount of suffering. So for any parents listening, um, one of the greatest gifts that you could give your kids is to help them to be outside, more in nature. Because every kid at heart, they want to connect to the rhythm of nature, and they want to be outside. That's how kids learn and get inspired, not by being in prison cell, rooms, memorizing and repeating. Every kid at heart wants to be outside, wants to listen to the rhythms of nature, wants to be inspired by the beauty, and that triggers the curiosity of the kid to learn more and to observe the phenomena of nature. So it's absolutely necessary and important.
Well, I'll tell you, if you hadn't gone through those struggles, we wouldn't be here today. We wouldn't have this brilliant opportunity to have these wonderful glasses to protect us. So I thank you. I thank you for the suffering. I honor the challenges and the experiences you have gone through to bring these to life and to bring this information to educate the masses on how important light is, how it is to our bodies, how it works, our hormones, everything. It's a wonderful job, a calling that you are doing. And I personally, and on behalf of the DNA company, we thank you very much for all of your information, for being here, and for sharing your brilliance with our audience today. So, would you please, really quick, just a shout out where people can find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So they can find us on our website, VivaRays.com, VivaRays.com. And I want to re-emphasize for anyone listening to this information for the first time, the way we learn as human beings is via repetition. Don't expect that you're going to listen to this from the first time and that you're going to grasp everything about it and that you're going to be able to implement it. So the more you expose yourself to this information, the more the greater the chance that you're going to be able to implement it. And that's why I have written the e-booklet. It's very short, 50 to 60 pages, and it condenses everything I learned about quantum biology and circadian biology in very easy means. I wanted to simplify it so that a 3 years old kid could read it and could understand exactly what they need to do to elevate their light environment and experience better sleep, more productivity, and more energy. So I want to invite everybody. It's a free tool. When you go to our website, feel free to download it. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us at support@vivarays.com. We love hearing from people. We love answering questions, even if it's not necessarily and directly related to the glasses. Anything related to light and health, we'd love to support you with that. And I'm actually in the process. I'm about to finish. We created a blog series for the winter where I'm teaching people about how to transform their winters from a time of sadness and fatigue to a time of deep joy and regeneration by using the forces of physics like light, darkness, grounding, food, and so on to help the body to know that it's winter so that it can thrive and does what it's supposed to do during that time of the year. They can also access this for free.
That is wonderful. Thank you so much. And I will tell you, I've been to your website, I've looked at your ebook, read that, just brilliant information. And again, it is so wonderful you providing this information for free to educate people so they can have a healthier, wonderful life. So again, thank you so much for being here. And thank you everyone for taking the time today to listen to us here at the DNA Talks podcast. Please, if you have any comments, things about things that you're interested in, questions that you have, please put information in down below. Let us know what you think of these podcasts because we are here for you. We want to give you the information, the technologies, answer the questions, those burning desires that you want to know. So until then, have a glorious day and enjoy.